Hello and welcome to Focus On. In this series of podcasts, we're going to be hearing from highly experienced businessmen and women about their career path and all things digital. Our guest today is Dr. Andy Cope from the Art of Brilliance. Welcome, Andy.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to get the chance to share some happiness stuff with you today. T-shirt gives you a clue.
Excellent. Well, we're looking forward to it too. Actually, when we met a few years ago, we worked together on a series of well-being videos for educational professionals. And actually, it's been a real pleasure ever since. But to give our audience some background, perhaps you could just kick us off with an overview of what it is that you do.
Yeah, certainly what I do now is I've got this bizarre title of a Doctor of Happiness, which I do know that is sounds a bit weird, but I describe myself as think of all the other doctors you know, and I'm not that. So what happens is doctors and psychologists, they look at you when you're not well. Well, I decided that we can all think of a handful of people in our life who are well, who are flourishing, who've got energy and positivity and passion for life. The slightly weird people who are as live on a Monday as they are on a Friday. They love Mondays as well. So what I realized is that medicine and psychology has never studied those people on the grounds of them not being ill. So I took that on as a project at Loughborough Uni and got myself a PhD in human flourishing.
Oh, awesome. And I have to say, actually, working with Art of Brill was a breath of fresh air. And your 2%er message is something that we are striving towards. We're there, not all the time, but we're getting there. Perhaps you ought to just explain what that is. Yeah.
Can I just explain what a 2%er is, in case, because you're in the know, but I think not most people probably won't be. So basically, long story butchered to the bare bones, is if you plot people on a graph of happiness, which is basically what I did in my PhD, is we've always looked at the people at the bottom end who aren't feeling very well, whereas I looked at the small percentage of people at the top end who are flourishing. They've got bags more energy, they do stuff, and I nicknamed them the 2%ers because there aren't many. But essentially, these are the people who are living at the top end of their well-being spectrum, the happy few.
That's an interesting thing. I mean, you're doing that now, but when you left education years ago, I presume you didn't think you'd end up as a Doctor of Happiness.
No, if you rewind back to age 16, I didn't do very well at school. Couldn't wait to leave school, actually, and then I got a job as a welder in a factory. And after 2 weeks of being a welder, all of a sudden I wanted to go back to school and not be a welder. And actually that kickstarted me into trying super hard and using my brain and going back to college and getting straight A's after that. So it was a kick up the backside I needed, actually. Then drifted into education, all sorts of different roles, and now write books and deliver keynotes. Got the best job in the world.
Yeah, excellent. But looking back, would you do anything differently?
Well, it's easy to be capped in hindsight, isn't it? But I actually wouldn't. I quite like my regrets. I think I have one regret is that I've not had enough regrets. I think we all make mistakes and life batters around and we all get embarrassed and we all do silly things occasionally. But I think that actually they make you who you are. All the mistakes you've made have made me who I am today. So if I rewound and did it again, I'd still be a welder for a year. I'd still hate it. But like I say, it was like rocket fuel for me because it fueled me into jumping into trying to be a better version of me. And I think that's probably a key message that I think the scars and life's been dealing a lot of trauma to a lot of people at the moment, and we carry that with us, but it makes us who we are. I think it's quite powerful, actually.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And if you can take something from everything that you do that moves you forward, then that's a good thing, isn't it? And I think I wouldn't change anything that I've done. I think I might have got to the same place in the end because I think this is where I'm meant to be. But I didn't have an idea when I started out. I started out in a solicitor's office, training to be a solicitor and a conveyancer, and then just decided that I'd really had a bit of an insight into the film industry through doing singing on backing tracks for films at Pinewood, and I wrote to the BBC and just said, give us a job, really. And because I'd learnt to type really accurately in a solicitor's firm, they wanted people to take reports down from news reporters coming in. Then it was over the phone because we didn't have the technology that we have these days. But everything that I've done, I've found something of value that I've taken forward.
Well, it sounds like the BBC probably wouldn't have taken you on if you hadn't got the skills you learned as a solicitor, being able to take the notes. So, like you say, I always felt quite jealous of people at school who seem to have their life mapped out at age 16, right? And there are a few of those around, but I think most people, certainly the people coming through the system now, the jobs exist now that, well, jobs are going to exist in 5 years that we don't know exist now. So I think it is, a lot of it is about recreating yourself and making yourself open to opportunities and challenges.
Yeah, and I think also it's not so much about the job as the people. So I mean, I'm thinking here about. I mean, the important thing is about yourself and to be positive about how you approach life and career in general. What would you say to help people do that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I built a career on a business, in fact, on basically looking around at what everybody else is doing and not doing that. I think because what you'll find is most people, for example, most people don't like Mondays. We've learned culturally that Mondays are a bit rubbish, but Fridays are great, right? But I think if you can fall in love with Monday, I'm not saying it's not easy, right? Because nobody else is joyous on Monday. But if you can be, you'll stand out a mile. And other things like you taught to set smart objectives, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And I'm like, well, what's the point of that? Set yourself a huge, unbelievably great goal. Knock it out of the ballpark. Get yourself excited about getting out of bed in the morning. And the other one is I think everybody does a to-do list, and we all go, oh, God, this is what I've got to do. And I'm into to-be list. Who are you being while you're doing it? So I think it's all that slightly counterintuitive stuff that just makes you stand out for the right reasons. In fact, there's 7 words. I wrote a book for kids called Diary of a Brilliant Kid. And that book was based on 7 words. And the words are, do it better than you have to. So if I was going to say one thing that if you just do everything a little bit better than you have to, then what happens is you stand out. So I'm talking about like just trying a bit harder than you have to, and being a bit more enthusiastic than you have to, and using your manners a bit more than you have to, and being a bit more grateful than you have to. And all these tiny little bits just add up to you standing out for the right reasons. Because the truth is, most people don't do extra. They just do what they have to and the minimum. And just going that extra is, you get noticed, you get spotted. You'll have a probably a better chance of opening some opportunities for you, actually.
No, I think that's true. I noticed that particularly in customer service roles, people who do more than just go through the tick box and do that little bit extra just because they can, actually makes you feel a lot warmer towards them and more positive about them and the business they're representing.
Also, that works for them, because when you have done things better than you have to and you've gone the extra mile, you feel good about that as well. There is nobody loses in that situation. I was talking about actually the difference between being really good at what you do and being world class. And that is that niggly little gap that I'm interested in filling. And I don't think that gap costs anything. I don't, because it's already in the hearts and the heads and the minds of the people watching this recording. But it's that gap you need. That gap for me is when your customers, whoever they may be, family, friends, work colleagues, or actual customers, they're going, wow, that was amazing, right? And if you can get them to go, wow, then whatever you turn your hand to, opportunity doors will open for you, I promise.
Yeah, the without words stuff is really powerful, actually. That's really interesting stuff. I really appreciate your input on that. We've actually come to our soapbox moment now, which can be something that's your bee in your bonnet, as something that niggles you. I don't know if anything does niggle you, really. Or it can be something you want to kind of tip your hat to and say, that's a really awesome thing that I want to get to.
Yeah. So what niggles the doctor of happiness, hey? Who you think is a guru of everything happy? Well, there's a couple of things that niggle me, but particularly, um, my mission in the next 40 years is to get well-being on the curriculum in education. So if you think about it, Karen, as a parent, every single parent, there's one thing you want for your kids, right? You want your children to be happy, right? And if you ask that question across the world, every single parent, that's the one thing: I want my kids to be happy. And then we put them through a system that kind of knocks the happiness out of them. And I'm thinking, actually, why isn't happiness and well-being actually a discrete subject that sits on the syllabus? So if you're teenagers, imagine if you're a teenager, right? You're double maths, double French, double history, and double well-being. Then what we will be able to do is teach young people how to feel amazing, how to be grateful, how to do mindfulness and meditation, about positive psychology, about gratitude, about altruism, about resilience, and how to bounce back when the world does its worst. And therefore, what we're doing essentially is inoculating young people against the troubles of the modern world. Because the truth is, like, when the world's doing its worst, which it has been for a long time, is that we might bend, but we don't have to break. And that's me on my soapbox. Is, why the heck are we waiting to break people, waiting for them to have a breakdown and then fixing them? Why don't we give them the wherewithal and the knowledge and the skills so they can take care of their own well-being? It is a no-brainer. but nobody's doing it.
Yeah, well, the good news is, Andy, that's starting. You've started the revolution. It's on its way. I know a couple of schools locally that have got mindfulness on the curriculum now.
Yes, it has started. I
So
agree.
it has
started.
started, but it needs
Yes.
keep pushing it out there. We'll get the message out there to people. That's awesome, actually. And just finally, thinking with your AOB hat on, what about the challenges of managing social media these days? Because it can be a wonderful thing, but it can also be quite a negative thing. And how do you? Are there any things you could say to help people understand how to stay positive?
Yeah, well, anti-social media, as I call it. There's a lot of negativity and bile, and it does bring out the worst in people. I've committed to just sending happy, positive tweets and happy. I never engage in anything negative at all. But I've gone. I call it. I've gone 24/6. Most people are 24/7, right? I'm full on 24/7. I'm 24/6, which means I have a whole day, I have a Friday that is technology and Wi-Fi free, right? Now, it's a bit weird. I call it Techno Friday. Clever, right? So what I do is no tweeting, no social media, no Facebook, no Insta, no nothing on those days. And I know it's a bit weird, but I feel like I've reclaimed 14% of my life. I've kind of got that day now that I like. It's like having a long weekend. So Friday, no Tech Friday. No, I feel fantastic about it, and it's given me space. Seriously, it gives me headspace that I'm not distracted and I can get on with writing my books and doing my prep and doing whatever I have to do on those days. I would advise everybody to go 24/6, live your life 24/6.
Excellent. That's a really good idea. I like that one. I'd almost say it was a hashtag, but that might be against the grain, I suppose.
You hashtag it on a Thursday.
On a Thursday. Tomorrow is Techno Free Friday. Excellent. So, I mean, that's some really useful stuff there, Andy. Thank you so much for your time. If people wanted to get in touch with you about Art of Brill and the stuff that you do, what's the best way of contact?
Yeah, we're artofbrilliance.co.uk or Brilliant Schools. So it's the same thing. Or buy a book. We've got loads of books on happiness, well-being, positive psychology, and human flourishing. So yeah, fill your boots with that.
Yeah, and I have to say the books are very well written. They're easy reads, but there's a lot in them as well. So they're not. You don't need a lot of brain power, but you just need concentration and being real, I suppose.
Well, I think that's our USP, as they call it, unique selling point, is we debunk all the nonsense and we don't use the big words. It's like, I'm a normal bloke. I'm not particularly clever, but so if I can understand it, then everybody else should be able to.
Awesome. Right. Well, thank you very much. So what are your thoughts on the topics we've raised today? We'd love to hear from you. So do get in touch. Our email is admin@takeonetv.com. And finally, do subscribe and tell your friends, because we'd really like to grow our tribe and learn by sharing what we know as we focus on.